How do we make the most of summer? It can be stressful because we literally only have like 3 months out of the year to try to fit in all the projects and all the fun things that we want to do. And if you're anything like me, sometimes you find yourself like so overwhelmed with all the free time you have, you don't know how to use it. And so, like, you end up just doing meaningless things because you get decision paralysis from all the options you have for how you can spend your time. In this episode, we are going to help you come up with a summer that's going to transform you, like in every way, physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, so that you walk away from this summer break being a better person than you were before. This episode is more so tailored towards the girls because I talk about a lot of things that men probably would not enjoy doing during their summer, but if you are a male listener, you still can derive some value from this episode. Just be warned, it's not like a guy's episode. That's all I'm going to say. We need to make the most of our summer because this is such a crucial time, especially for those of you who are my same age and going into college this semester. This is like the time you have to transform yourself, become a better person, and finally relax before the school semester starts, because otherwise you can find yourself with a lot of burnout. And if you misuse your summer, then either you're going to go back to school and be like lazier than before and find it hard to focus, or you're going to go back to school and just feel like disappointed that you wasted your free time. And I want you to experience neither of those. But also, I want you to know that the purpose of this time is to relax, truly, like get true rest, not just like productive rest, but also real rest, because that's something that we actually need in order to stay creative, especially as women. The number one thing that we tend to neglect is our rest, because we're always like caught up in this mainstream idea that we should be working all the time. And there's nothing wrong with hard work, but because women have a 28-day hormonal cycle, there's some times where we just actually physically need more rest than men, which is why it's important, like for the summer, even if you have big goals to get done, I want you to know how to enjoy it, because when you learn how to enjoy it and actually let yourself rest while still being productive, then it's like you'll walk away fully charged instead of as if you tried to like grind through the whole summer, you walk away, yes, having gotten some stuff done, but super burnt out. And then the next semester, you're just going to be like miserable. Because I did that last summer. Um, I took a bunch of college classes during the summer, and then I felt like my whole summer just flew by and I didn't actually have any time to rest. It was a great summer, but there's some things I wish I did differently. So we are going to go over all the things we can do to help you have like the most recharging, transformative summer ever. Okay, so we are jumping right into it with a little talk on the types of rest. This is actually something that my life coach told me about. She's actually the best. I'll try to link her below because I just finished like I paid for like 4 calls with her, and we just finished our last call the other day, and like actually my life has transformed in so many positive ways, from having a life coach and someone to go to for advice on like procrastination and other things. But I was telling her how sometimes I just feel so burnt out, and it's like I have so many goals I want to get done, but at the end of the day, even though I have like the time to work on them, I feel so mentally exhausted that I just find myself scrolling on my phone or like sleeping instead of actually doing productive things with my morning. And she was telling me how each person needs like 7 different types of rest. And I definitely won't remember them all, but there's some different kinds I remember. Like physical rest, which is sleeping. That's the one most people think of. You obviously need some good levels of sleep. Emotional rest, so that means like allowing yourself to process your emotions and not emotionally overloading yourself. Like this would mean like journaling, social rest. So that means not spending a ton of time with people all the time, because that will actually drain you. Creative rest, which means you're giving yourself time to work on personal projects and just do things for the sake of creating and not for the sake of getting attention from others. So like even this podcast, I don't know if it truly counts as creative rest because I am uploading it to a public space. Creative rest would be like I draw something just for myself. And then there's also spiritual rest, which means like prayer and going to church. And I think that's all the ones I can remember right now. But basically, you need all of those different types of rest to truly feel rested. So a lot of us neglect that, and we only give ourselves like physical rest, for example. We only sleep, but we completely neglect all the other needs that our soul kind of has. And when we do that, then we just always feel burnt out, no matter what. And I've actually been getting so into nervous system regulation because I used to find myself in this functional freeze state, which is basically where you're lying in bed, and I'm sure you've experienced this before, and you have a million things you want to do, and you're stressed about the list of things you have to do, but you just can't bring yourself to do anything for some reason. And so you scroll on your phone, and you're like kind of scrolling in panic because you're stressed, and you still just can't get out of bed to do anything even though you want to. It's called a functional freeze state, and that happens actually when your cortisol levels, which is like the stress hormone, is so high for so long, are so high for so long, that you basically become like a zombie. Like you're basically mentally paralyzed because of all the stress that you've put your nervous system through for so long. So if you're always working way too hard, you're going to start to find yourself in this functional freeze state more and more and more. And then when you have all this summertime, that's not good because you will be in a functional freeze state and you won't be able to use your summer the way you want to. So I recommend you look up nervous system regulation practices on YouTube, first of all, if you struggle with procrastination and you know that it'll keep you from having the productive summer that you want to have. Secondly, I recommend that you look into getting each of those 7 types of rest, because I notice that when I actually take the time to do unproductive things like drive to the park and just sit down and read a book in the grass, I actually feel so much more energized. And I had this project that I had been procrastinating on for a long time. It's deep cleaning my room and like getting rid of all of my old clothes. And I've been taking breaks by like going to the park in the evenings and reading books. And I will say that I actually find myself more motivated and more easily able to work on that project when I go out and take those breaks and romanticize my summer and like, just allow myself to have all the types of rest that I need, especially when I take the time to go to church and get spiritual rest and then talk to people I love, which gives me like emotional rest, and also give myself some alone time, which is social rest. So all of those things, all of those different types of rest, you may think you're being lazy, but no, you're actually recharging yourself, which allows you to have that transformative summer that you actually want to have. Another thing I would say is romanticizing your summer. We have to romanticize our summer because this is like, I don't want to say a once in a lifetime thing, but each summer is kind of a once in a lifetime thing because each summer has such different opportunities and such different people. You've got to romanticize this chapter of life that you're in right now. And I find it just so easy to do personally because it's pretty easy for me to romanticize a lot of things just because it's the way I think about the world. Like I see the world in such like a kind of like a spiritual lens. So it's easy for me to really see like the beauty in everything because I've read so many books that are just spiritual, talking about things like surrender and acceptance. And so those things are just deeply ingrained in my mindset, and I would advise if you want to actually romanticize life, work on your mindset first. So some books I would recommend if you really want to like embrace the beauty of the summer season that you're in Radical Acceptance. That's a book I read in the winter and I loved it so much. Like, actually, it's definitely on my list of favorite books of all time. So good. And then I'm also reading another book right now called The Power of Surrender. And I forgot the name of the author, but it's also really, really, really good. And it also has like a lot of details that just confirm things I've read in other books. And then the final book I read that I would recommend is, I think it's called The Courage to Be Happy. And I know it's by two Japanese authors, and it has a super interesting like dialogue between a philosopher and a student on their perspective of life. And it really does teach you how to adopt a new perspective on life. And books like that actually change the way you see the world, those are the books you should be reading first, because they will actually change your life. Because if you learn to see the world in a romanticized way this summer, your life will change, because it's easier to get yourself to do the things you want to do and to transform yourself, like by going to the gym, reading good books, getting projects done, if you have a romanticized view of all of it. If you see this as like, I'm cleaning my room, I'm letting go of old energy, and I'm transforming my space, and I'm releasing old things to allow new things to come into my life, then it's like, wow, that's such a beautiful romanticized view of it. How could you not want to clean your room? And that's what I've been doing as I go through like all my old things of clothing. And also, I will say, I recommend, if you want to have a transformative summer, you should be cleaning your room as well, because it does allow you to get rid of that old energy. But anyway, as I've been going through my room, like letting go of old clothes, I had this issue where I was like, oh, but I feel bad because this is a gift, or I feel bad because remember I wore this shirt that time in 7th grade when I had this happy memory. And I was like trying so hard to cling on to these things that just like those chapters had passed, but I was trying to cling on to it still. And I realized like, wow, every item of clothing that I let go, it's like an energetic space for something new to come into my life. Because with every single thing in your life that you get rid of, you're like making room for the new. And so it became like this beautiful process of surrender for me, because now I feel like I have all this empty energy, all these empty spaces in my room where new clothes will come in that I will wear and make new happy memories with. And so it's not really a sad process anymore for me. It's not like, oh, I'm so sad I have to get rid of all these books that I liked or these clothes that I once thought were cute. It's like, wow, I'm so excited to see what new stuff can come into my life as a result of this process of getting rid of things. So romanticizing life, number one tip for how to have a transformative summer. Now let's talk about how this also applies to the gym. If you want to have a transformative summer, you need to get in the gym. And you need to be moving your body in some sort of way, especially if you're a girl, because it just helps regulate your hormones. So first I want to say, getting in the gym, that's like the number one thing that's going to actually make you feel like beautiful, because you're in touch with your body when you're in the gym and you're working out. And it really helps you release like toxins in your body, and it just helps you regulate your hormones. And as a girl, regulating your hormones is very, very important. You want to be doing that. So eat a healthy diet, get in the gym. All of those things are going to help you tremendously when it comes to regulating your hormones. And it feels good because it helps with lymphatic drainage. So you know when you have like a really puffy face, or you notice your body's starting to puff up and get bloated, when you move around, you allow all of that fluid to drain. And then that's what gives you that like that glowy, slender look, is when you allow lymphatic drainage to happen, and it helps you de-bloat. A really easy tip I have if you're like, oh, I don't really know if I want to get in the gym and lift heavy weights or like sprint on the treadmill, just walk after dinner. I've read so many books that say just walking for 10 minutes after dinner has so many health benefits, or even after every meal. then you'd be having like a breakfast walk for 10 minutes, lunch walk for 10 minutes, dinner walk for 10 minutes. That's 30 minutes of walking, which is going to be so good for you. And the benefits are that, one, it helps with digestion. Like, it has huge benefits when it comes to debloating. So it's hard to have like a really transformative, like romanticized summer if you're bloated. So go on walks after your meals. It'll help you feel like slender and beautiful. And it also helps with digestion, obviously. And it regulates your blood sugar levels, which regulates your energy. So after you eat, unless you want to have like a huge energy spike and crash, which will leave you feeling, not so divine, I recommend that you go on a walk, and it will kind of help you take the excess sugar out of your bloodstream because you're using it on the walk. And then throughout the rest of the day, you're not going to have such like up and down energy levels. It'll be more so steady. And that's going to help you get a lot more done. And finally, you get to spend time outside, which is honestly something so underrated. I really hate the fact that like so many people spend so much time inside, because there's just nothing more beautiful than time outside. Like this summer, you need to make use of your local parks and just go sit out there. You don't even have to walk, just go sit there, honestly, and sit in silence. I would try to not bring your phone because your phone like kind of interrupts the experience. Just sit there like with a book. It's so calming. Like there's some times I've gone to the park with the intention to read, and then I've realized like, wow, you know what? I just want to sit here and look at the grass and watch the sunset. And that's okay too. That's definitely the type of rest that you need if you really want to avoid burnout, just doing nothing. Okay, so continuing on with my list of how to transform your summer, I recommend you make a summer bucket list. And low-key, this should have been the first thing I said, but I just thought of it. So what I do every summer is I make a list of the big goals that I want to have accomplished by the end of the summer. So like read 10 books, publish a newsletter every week, maybe write a book, reach out to X person and schedule a podcast, stuff like that. And this will really help you because it makes you feel like summer's exciting and now you have like a direction. And like it makes you feel so cool because you think about how if you really put in the time, you could have all of these big things done by the end of the summer. And that really motivates me and it makes me feel happy because it's like, now I actually have a blueprint for who I could become by the end of the summer. For example, you could run a race also. If you want to get into fitness, you could try to like progress to a certain weight on, let's say, chest press or something like that. And it'll really motivate you. So I recommend you make a summer bucket list. And then another tip I have for how we're going to have a transformative summer is read. Reading is just so good for you in so many ways. One, reading self-help books, which are like my favorite type of book, just help you in so many ways, honestly. And I think they get a lot of hate, and I don't know why. I've heard people use it in a derogatory way, like, oh, look at them, they're reading like self-help books. That's a red flag. I don't know why you'd say that. Like, self-help books are really great. If someone is reading self-help books, I see that as a green flag, but I've heard girls say that it's a red flag if guys read them, but I don't find that to be a red flag at all, because that shows that someone who's willing to read those books is aware of their flaws and is working on them, or just wants to be a better human being so that they can serve others better and show others love. And that's why I read a lot of them, because for example, like I read books on communication and attachment styles so I can fix my communication issues and attachment issues, because I've realized, like, when I first learned about attachment styles, like, wow, I do not have a secure attachment style. I realized I had a disorganized attachment style, and I could make a whole podcast episode on this, but there are like 4 major types of attachment styles. Anxious, which is like you're obsessed with someone, you're texting them a lot, you're always worried about if they're cheating on you. avoidant, which means you push people away when they try to love you, like you're uncomfortable with getting close to people. Disorganized, which means you have both anxious and avoidant tendencies. And so for me, I never really act that anxious. Like I would never in a million years spam someone with text messages or call them all the time. But mentally, I am a little bit anxious and I worry about things even when I don't really have a good reason to worry. But I present as avoidant. Well, not really. I present as more so secure, but I have a little bit of anxiety. So I'm kind of disorganized. And then the last one is secure. So secure means that you just, like, you don't worry about things. You trust people. You communicate well. And yeah, that's the goal. The goal is to be secure. But I noticed, like, maybe a few years ago that I did have disorganized tendencies. And it was because some things happen in my childhood. Like there's usually some core events that happen that will determine your attachment style. But anyway, as I was saying, I noticed I had an issue with attachment styles. And so I read like multiple books on it and then I fixed it. And now I'm such a better communicator than I was before. Like if something bothers me, I don't expect other people to read my mind and I'll just communicate it. And let me go ahead and tell you, the right people, when you communicate with them, they actually care and they will take steps to fix it. If you are ever talking to a guy and you communicate that something bothers you in a mature way and they are just nonchalant or they don't really care, like, do better, please. Find someone better, because there are people who will like immediately just take care of the issue. And I've been lucky enough to find one, and I would say it's really life-changing when you just have that support system and you have someone who you can communicate with who takes you seriously and will like take the steps to make sure that you feel supported and always comfortable. So that's my little TED talk on it. But I would really recommend that you read those books because they're going to help you. And if you ever need book recommendations, DM me on Instagram. I will give you book recommendations because I've read Lord knows how many books on self-improvement. So I know them for like nutrition, communication styles, self-discipline, pretty much everything I've probably read a self-improvement book on. So DM me. You can DM the podcast Instagram, which is at Personal Growth Project Official, or you can DM my personal Instagram, which is at Avigail Laing. Hard to spell, but I'll make sure that I type it out on the screen. So yeah. And then also, we're talking about books in general, and I just talked about self-improvement books, but fiction books are actually really good for you. I watched this TED Talk that was saying, when you read a fiction book, the same regions of your brain light up as like the regions of the brain of someone who is actually doing the activities in the book. So like if you're reading a book about someone who's solving a mystery, like those same problem-solving regions in your brain will light up. So honestly, it is like you can live multiple lives. And if you want to learn how to romanticize life, it genuinely does help to read a story through someone else's point of view, because it helps you see the world in a different way. And even a third-person story can just make you feel like it either exposes you to new things that you've never really experienced before, or it helps you like empathize with other people. But I wanted to show you guys the books that I have because I think that they're really good. This one, All the Light We Cannot See, I watched the Netflix adaptation of it and it was so good. Like actually the ending made me cry. It's just such a good story, such a pretty story. It's about this blind girl named Marie, and she basically is in the middle of World War II in France. And it's also about this guy, this soldier, and I'm not going to spoil it, but he does a lot of stuff with radios. And the cool thing about this book is like their two stories kind of intertwine at the end. And then it's like this really cool invisible string moment when they finally meet. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about it. But it's a really pretty story. It's so well written. And I've been reading this book a lot. I'm trying to finish it before I leave for Japan, but I don't know if I'm going to do that because it's a really long book. But I've been listening to the book and reading the audiobook, and it's really good. And then I got some other books. I got this one. It's basically like a retelling of the story of the girl who helped, what's his name? Theseus defeat the Minotaur. And I normally don't read fiction, but I saw someone was reading this book and I was like, hey, that looks kind of cool. So I'm going to give it a try. I don't know if it's good yet, so I don't know if I can recommend it to you. But I really like books about I think I would like books about Greek mythology and things like that, because I don't know. For whatever reason, I just do. And then this other book is by the same author, and it's basically also about a girl who does something cool. So I think she is working with Artemis, and it looks like they're looking for the Golden Fleece or something like that. I was like, okay, it's not that long of a book. It looks cool. I think that women in Greek mythology are really cool. Definitely, that's divine feminine kind of thing. I like powerful women. I think that that's cool. I love books that just kind of remind us of how powerful women can be when they tap into their femininity, because I feel like it's kind of a forgotten art, and there are a lot of women who are trying to be powerful by tapping into their masculinity, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I will say that I actually made a podcast episode on this, talking about this exact thing. Women are more powerful, actually, and more effective when they try to get stuff done by tapping into their femininity. And books like this, about girls like this, those are women who are tapping into their femininity and able to accomplish a lot because they're doing that. And even in this book, All the Light We Cannot See, this girl, Marie, she has a broadcast that she does every night, just because, I can't spoil the story. But anyway, that's her tapping into her creative energy and her femininity by doing this broadcast every night, even though she doesn't even know if people are listening. And really good things happen because of her broadcast. So that's another example of how tapping into your femininity can do really great things for you. So I like reading books like that. And as I was saying, reading either self-help books or really good stories like this can really help you transform your mindset and become a new person by the end of the summer. So that's the big tip I have for you. And yeah, the final tip I have is to upgrade your diet and come up with a consistent sleep schedule. I will say the times in my life when I have been having a diet of just clean foods and sleeping consistently, it's so much easier to step into your power and really get a lot of things done because your hormones are regulated. A lot of things tie back to having our hormones regulated because they literally influence how we feel and our energy levels on a day-to-day basis, and you cannot fight biology. You cannot deny your biology. So if you want to live life believing that your hormones don't matter, then everything is going to be an uphill climb for you. But if you learn to work with your hormones and regulate them, you will be doing much better. So eat whole foods. Try to not eat things with packages because they're probably not good for you. Eat simple foods, foods that you can pick from a tree, or things that are just meat. I think meat is actually, I know a lot of people have different opinions on this. A lot of steak, eggs, berries, salads. Eat a lot of that. Also nuts are really good for you. Avocado, healthy fats. I've read so many books on nutrition, and I'll try to not blab about this for too long, but just try to prioritize a diet with lots of healthy proteins and fats, minimize carbohydrates. And finally, you want to have a consistent sleep schedule because studies have also shown that is crucial for regulating your hormones and your energy levels. So if you want to always feel beautiful and radiant, and reduce acne, because regulating hormones actually helps you reduce acne and inflammation, then you should have a consistent sleep schedule. I am working on this. Right now it's kind of a mess. I don't know what happened. I used to wake up at 4:30 and go to bed at 8:30. And then the last month of school happened, and exams happened, and prom happened. and I've started going to bed at 2 a.m. and waking up at like 10 a.m. One time I even went to bed at 4:30 and I was like, oh my gosh, like I've completely flipped my sleep schedule around, but it can be fixed and I'm working on it. And my hormones will be more regulated when I do fix that sleep schedule. So also drink lots of water. That's kind of obvious, but those are my tips for how to have a transformative summer. Make your bucket list, read lots of books, eat a healthy diet of whole, clean foods, regulate your sleep, and learn to romanticize life by like reading really good self-help books, like Radical Acceptance and The Power of Surrender. All of those things will help you a lot. And also pray. God will help you transform your life more than any of the tips in this video. So, yeah. I'm very happy to make this podcast episode just because it's something, like all of these are things I'm just so excited to share because they genuinely make my life happier. So when I have something from the heart like this that I can just share and put out there, I'm always happy to do it regardless of how many streams this gets. So I hope those of you who are watching have an amazing week. And if you want to continue supporting the podcast, you can follow the podcast newsletter. I try to post semi-regularly, and if I haven't posted anything new, you can always read some of the old posts on there. Also, follow the podcast Instagram for updates on every new episode and also some shorter reels and clips that I post at Personal Growth Project Official. And I would say that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next week's episode.